Hello, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. Today is Saturday, not Friday, Saturday. So there are other days in the week. It's amazing. Today I'm talking with an old friend of mine who is with us from the other side of the globe, far, far on the other side of the globe. Hanan Sheikh. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself. And please.
Thank you so much for having me, Joy. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm so happy that you have me on here. I'm excited and looking forward to talking to you about multiple stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about interesting, the way things are going today, the global economy, the way new companies work collaboratively, and how we work across the globe.
Mm.
Because um, the world did not end in COVID; it sort of got smacked in the face. Turned around. Things that were happening already
Mm.
um, sort of got a kick in the butt and started, escalating and moving even quicker. There was a dip um, in in work across the globe during COVID, and when it started back up, it started up. It didn't necessarily pick up where it had been. It exponentially picked up to where it had been. So you had mentioned before that you saw before because you have been working um, in an agency capacity. Tell us a little bit about that. Overseas. Tell us how that's been working for you.
Yeah, so I think all my experience is agency based, and the primary bread and butter is cultural diversity or working on a global scale because a lot of work is being outsourced to India for good reason. That is economical. And be it my old agency or my new one, I think the major difference here is how you have to adapt to, you say, a culture based in US versus a culture based in Philippines, Singapore, which is vastly different. Uh, how you pick up on nonverbal cues or generally a structure of a call, so for example, which is very different when you call have a call with a client in the US versus a client in the UK versus a client in the Australia. And what I've found is post COVID, uh, these uh, the entire world, I think, has had to adjust to this vast difference of time zones, of cultures, and sometimes it's a bit challenging to understand and adapt to certain work cultures, or the way people are. Sometimes you would uh, find that some people are more receptive to certain things versus others. So yeah, it has.
5 desks next to each other anymore. It's 5 desks across the world.
Yeah.
And you're sharing projects with people that you don't know at all, and you're not necessarily given the option to ever meet each other. So it's like, did you get that done? Yes. What we don't say, so how's the family, how the kids, what'd you do this weekend, like you would if there were 5 people together in a desk.
Yeah.
So it's just though that has to change. That human collaboration, that has to change.
And what I've found is it's difficult to bring people out of their shells because people are very self-conscious, especially if they are talking to someone who's not from their own country, so to speak. I have found this that people won't turn on their cameras. They would be on mute unless and until they have to speak something, and it only then it's just informational based. So even if I ask how is your weekend, it would be very rhetorical, and they'll be like, "Fine, I just went out," something like that. It's not going to be, "Oh yeah, when I went to barbecue and it was like this and it was like that," because I don't know if, for example, barbecue is offensive to you or not. It may be,
Right.
right? And I would have found it hard way earlier. So I'm very cautious as to what I let on to other people. So I think oh, the first thing to do here is be transparent, creating a transparent environment where I can tell you how I feel without you taking it personally, which I try to foster in my team, all of my team. So one of them is in Central Europe. All the others are in Philippines. And the first thing I've established is creating an environment where I can tell you something without sugarcoating it, without underplaying it, but you don't take it as a personal attack or an attack on your work, uh, you know, work ways or work ethics. Sorry, right? I was not thinking about the word, but yeah, I think that's the initial part of it, where you think collaboratively just about the work and not about the person behind that.
Yeah. And, um, is English the accepted language?
Yes, but it's very interesting because, like for example, sometimes I'll add like a Hindi word, just the words we say just in between sentences when we are stuck. So I would say acha, oh, esa, and it's unnoticed, but it'll be similar to someone in, let's say, Philippines. They'll say Allah a lot. You know, La, what I was doing something La, and it's so nice because these are like their small bits of their cultures just mixed in with English. But yeah, primarily it is English. But you'd see in English someone that speaks in like Singapore, Malaysia versus someone in India. So of course, yeah.
Right, right. It's I mean, I find it as equally frustrating as it is fascinating.
Hmm,
Because once you break down the wall, then it becomes, oh, can we talk about this? But until that point,
hmm,
um, I'd say that culturally, if you have a culture that matches yours
hmm,
to some extent, so um, two Muslims, one in the Philippines, one in India, they
hmm.
have something in common,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, they're vastly different, but they have
Hmm,
something in common. So there's something they can talk about,
hmm,
you know. Um, you know, Americans and English. I mean, there's no difference.
hmm.
It really
Yeah.
is no difference, other than some of the words are different, but we relate, you know, almost transparently. An American and a French, well, once you get over the language barrier,
Yeah.
but you know, the Western world can relate because of that Western culture. The Asian world can relate with the Asian culture, and now the Western world, the Asian world, the Middle Asian world, all of these different worlds are scrunched together, and here we are. Sort of, it's like Monday, all the Western world's talking to each other, and Tuesday, no, bam,
Hmm,
everybody's talking to each other, and we're not there's absolutely no training. You don't learn this in
hmm,
school,
hmm.
or
Yeah.
at least we don't learn this in school.
Yeah.
And I'd say when this was introduced to me, and as I said, it in many ways a global workforce. Initially, I was I was looking for gig work. I was contracting, so I was the global workforce. They outsourced to me. And in many cases, I was the enemy. Then that changed, and it was okay. Well, now you'd be working with the Philippines. Now you'd be working with India, and I didn't. I stopped being the enemy, and you guys started being the enemy. And I thought to myself, well, this is fascinating. This is an ending.
Yeah.
And you know, um, now because as I said in the gig world, that's all the way it is. You've got specialists that do different things from different places. Um, Whether it's because of the budget in the project, or the way the corporate has put it together, so that they hired an agency that does, this agency is doing this portion of all the work that the social. So the agency does all social, all projects, and the agency's in India. The end, you know, and everybody's now working with India when they work, when they're doing social, and that's the way it's beginning to get. Like you said, you've been working for agencies.
Yeah, and I
So
think,
go
sorry,
ahead. No, no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Uh, I I think now the change, what I see for the past 6 months is commercialization of a lot of these out of reach enterprise tools like Salesforce, for example. In India, now it is picking up speed that it has been started to have like courses from like college level. So in 5 years, you would see a workforce that is challenging Indians that were pretty niche into Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So we had like devs and consultants that were paid really high because obviously it's a very uh, obscure tool, so to speak. But now what they have done is Salesforce itself, or the Salesforce group, has started uh, nurturing from the college level. And in 5 years, these kids, these agile kids that are fresh and they want to do so much for so less amount of money, are going to challenge the Indian workforce itself.
Right.
So we will be our own end, so to speak.
I was going to say, but that's completely international, and Salesforce has been, I call it the Kool-Aid. So
Mhm,
Salesforce has been doing this for a long time. It needs to do this because
mhm.
the modules in Salesforce are so different because they bought them from different players.
Yes.
So, their initial Salesforce, and then the marketing cloud, and then all the other tools that, we're talking
Mhm.
about all these other tools. They're not built on the same necessarily, they're not built on the same platform. They're Frankenstein together. They
Mhm.
work together, but they're Frankenstein together. So that if you're looking for somebody to do data management, that's not necessarily somebody who has the same skills as the CRM. Just
Mhm.
because, just because there are contacts in the CRM, that doesn't mean that that person understands data management at all. And then handing it over in a gateway over to the email platform or the social
Mhm.
platform or any of the other platforms. There are so many. So Salesforce is so specific. There are a lot of people that flip out when I say certification, and I understand because, you know, but in many cases, the obscure tools require certification.
Yeah.
And Salesforce is very aggressive in that.
Mhm.
And what they're doing is securing them, Salesforce, as an enterprise tool in the commercial and, business work sphere for at least another 10, 15 years, at least.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm
You
not
know,
saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying that it's
it's
not going
not
to
wrong.
be as special. Uh, right now, being a Salesforce guy is the cool thing, like, orange is the new black, so to speak. But and in like 10 years or so, and India does it with a lot of things. There was a boom in commerce sector in the early 80s to 90s. Then it was engineering. Now it's something else. Like if you
India is
ask,
very flexible.
yeah, yeah. And if you ask right now for anyone that is 25 to 30, I would say 60%, if not more, would be engineers, but doing vastly different things. Someone would be in a bank, other one would be like doing uh, medical marketing. I'm doing digital marketing. It's just vastly different. But we all did engineering because we thought, hey, this is the new cool thing we had to do. We're 17 years old. What are we going to do? But we found out it's not for us, and we just found our own ways. But that's what it does, and I
It,
think that's
it's
that's what I'm seeing with,
all in the tech space.
yeah.
It's highly flexible. So when a tech company comes out, it reaches a specific level, it begins to it goes to India and it
Mhm.
finds a force and it educates them. And
Mhm.
India is like, yes, we want this, and it works.
Yes, it works.
It's and it has been happening. It has been happening for at least 20 years, because the tech. I mean, technically speaking, uh, you know, it used to be, China,
Mhm. Mhm.
Chinese programmers, etc. Then it began to spread. But what's very interesting is that India has made itself so flexible to it, so
Yes.
that it just it's producing a pool of people that are constantly able to say, okay, we'll pick this up. Yes, yes, let's do it. Let's go with it. And so it's always available. It's not going to outgrow itself.
And
It
I
won't be
think,
stagnant.
and India is only, one of those countries that would work on your time, or I'd say, as you want it. A lot of other countries not necessarily would just do whatever the requirements are. They'd be like, for example, night shift. I would say a lot of the tier one city IT professionals are working in night shift. I worked 5 years, 5.5 years in night shift. And I'd say that not a lot of other countries are open to that unless you like pay them vastly more. India
Right.
is like, we'll do it. You want to work nights, we'll do it. You want me to work at 3 a.m., I'll do it. You want me to learn this, I'll do it. And that has enabled Indians to kind of work towards these bigger companies, these bigger projects, and now these other companies are now coming in because they're like, why not? No, why just keep them as gig work? Just open our headquarters there and just work from there.
It um it and there
Yeah, and a lot of it is has also has to do with how everything has begun, like either work from home or hybrid model. So now, earlier it was you were meeting a lot of diverse people in office, but it was still the people from your vicinity. Now you're sitting at home talking to, as I'm talking to someone in the US or different countries. They have a different story, they have their own struggles, they have their own perceived emotions or perceived feelings. I would say something that would be okay or not even worth mentioning to me, but it would be highly offensive to you, and vice versa. And that's when you have to adapt very quickly and respect that, because you're gonna be working together for a very long time.
right.
So you gotta pick up that speed.
And that's a whole new, dimension to collaboration,
Mm,
where I'll say, you know, let's, are you able to work Saturday? And you're like, oh no, I don't work on Saturdays.
mm,
And you're like, oh, what do you mean? And somebody says, well, it's a Sabbath day or something, and you're like, what?
mm.
And or holidays
Yeah.
where suddenly you're working on a project and there are due dates, and you're like, okay, it's due tomorrow, and the person's got to say, I understand it's due tomorrow, but I won't be able to work past this point in time because blah 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 blah. And where we don't think about these things on a collaboration level, now we're forced to say, are you available? What time are you available? You know, types of things. Also, if I'm, when do I work at night and when do you work during the day? When do you work at night? When do I work during, those types of things. There are all these different things.
I think it has restructured the workplace on a very atomic level, where
Yes, exactly.
earlier I knew what would be the due date or what would be the entire duration of the project just because I was in a workplace. Now the entire, I would say, the kickoff or the initiation phase is just adjusting that expectancy of, I'll be replying to you 4 hours late because of a different time zone. I will not be working on these times and these days because I'll be out or whatever. For example, working with someone in Europe, they go on vacations exceeding 2 months, which is very strange for, I would say, both US and India. So like, how can you just, and please don't call me at all? And that's very offensive to them if you even mention work during their holidays. And you would have Indians who would have laptops in their own weddings. I've seen it. Like they are getting married, and the bride or the groom is on laptop answering emails. So it's it's
Yes.
for Indians it's very strange, and for Europeans, like, how are you working on your own wedding day? But it's happening. So
Well,
it
the Europeans who will you be available this afternoon? Oh, well, not between 12 and 3. Like, what do you mean between? Oh, no, I don't work between 12 and 3. Matter of fact, I probably won't be back till around 5 or 6. 5 or 6, I'm done for the day. What do you? So, I mean, there are just so many levels
Mhm.
that are different that we all need to get accustomed to, whereby I'd say on a competitive level, some people may back off
Mhm.
because it's just uncomfortable for them. They like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to express this. I don't know how to stand up for myself.
Mhm.
Or, I can't work with that person. They're just, all of these things are happening. And I don't think that we're going to go back to where we were. I
Mhm.
think we're going to learn how to deal with these things and move forward.
Yeah. Because if you don't learn how to adjust with different people, other people will, and they'll overtake you in like the global marketplace,
Exactly.
right? So a lot of teams in India, they are doing something called choose your own holidays. So India is a land of holidays. They're like there's one every week. Now you cannot shut down the entire company every week because that's not how it works. So you have different, as I said, different cultures, different religions. So you just give the authority to the people to choose your own holidays at the beginning of the year. So in like the first week of January, I decide what days I'll be off or what holidays I'll be off. And you don't necessarily have to be off on the same days. So the office stays open, the work still gets done, but both of us gets to enjoy our respective holidays. And that's where the sheer volume of the Indian workforce comes in. Because if you have like 100 people on the project, 10 people can go on a holiday and you still get the work done.
And,
Versus
and that's
someone,
why the concept of cloning comes in.
yes, yes, exactly. Where I would create what I say a clone of myself, whereby I can basically guarantee that the level of work or the standard of work will not drop from where I have prepped it up to when I'm not there. It's not going to be like if you talk to me or if you're working with me and I say like I'm going on a holiday for a week and this is the guy that's taking over, you'll know that the quality of work is not going to downgrade or it's not going to change. The way of communication is not going to change. So you are, rest assured, very relaxed and you're not worried about the project deadlines and stuff. So that's what I believe in creating, not necessarily something that doesn't have, clones still have a mind of their own, because that's why I choose clones and not mirrors or just, copies. Clones still have a mind of their own and they still have a way of thinking, but it's just the way they are. They'll just not go beyond. So their baritone of their voice will not change, or the way they walk will not change, but they'll still make their own independent decisions. I don't. Does it make sense? It's just,
No, it definitely makes sense. And that can be very stressful.
it is.
Um, it changes the dynamic a bit because it sort of takes competition out because you can't be competing in the States. If I were to go on vacation for a week,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have wrapped the project up completely
Mm-hmm.
prior to going. And if I put a clone in my spot, I would fear that clone would take my job.
Mm-hmm.
That's the perception,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, However, that obviously is not necessarily the case. And on a project in an agency um, environment where maybe you are wrapping up a project, the clone is picking up a new project, right? Maybe the clone will start it, but the point is when you come back,
Mm-hmm.
you're now their clone. You've got to pick up where that person left off because
Yeah.
he's not there anymore. He may move on to another, whatever, his
Yeah.
own job. He's going to drop your work now and he's just going to do his work. you may pick up his, there are all these dynamics going on. That doesn't happen in the US yet. That concept is agency concept. It's an agency concept because and it's not gig,
Yeah.
because I would never be expected to pick up somebody else's gig work.
Yeah.
Never. And, and if, as I said, if I were an employee, a corporate employee, I would be expected to wrap up that project. Done.
And I think that also stems from the seal of approval for hiring an agency. When I'm working with an agency, I'm not working with an individual. I'm working with an organization that has standards, that has a sort of a history of working with other brands that I've seen, their testimonials, their working style. So even if let's say I don't create a clone, anyone that is working on my project is expected to have a certain base standard of work, from the agency side. So let's say the client is not too much worried about as long as their work gets completed. Whereas in gig work, you are your own person, you are responsible for your own thing. So if you are going away, that basically leaves them with nothing. And that's where kind of the trust issue also comes in, like, oh, if you are going away for a week, who's going to do this stuff? Who's going to wrap it up? So yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with gig work. The contract concept is great, but because I've not only worked on the agency side, but as a contractor on the agency side, I haven't had a vacation in a million years. I wouldn't know what a vacation is. I haven't gone anywhere. I don't take holidays. I take holidays when my companies take holidays.
Yeah.
So when they shut down, I have that much less work. They're not paying me though, because they're shut.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's where, in the US, the way that global workforce has, or I'd say the West, the way the global workforce is growing is through that gig entrepreneur mentality.
Mhm.
But the or I should say the solopreneur mentality. And that's, I work, I myself, and there's no one else here. I might contract with other people to do pieces of my work, but the the person I'm working for has no idea that they may
And
say, you're going to do this part of the project, and I may need a programmer, and I may need a designer, and I may need all of these things. I will silently contract and deliver. It is a gig. I am by myself. It's An entrepreneur would assume that I'm building a larger business, so that I'm taking on a lot of people connect with me. Can I work for your agency? I'm like, I don't have any. I'm me. So, that's the entrepreneur model, where, okay, I'll build an agency and you'll work for me. Yeah. And, you become an employee in my small company. I'm a solopreneur. I work for myself. So even if I were to hire someone else to work with me, it would be silent to the person I'm delivering the end product to. And all of these wild things are going on in business these days that make it fascinating, literally fascinating, because anybody can be doing, you can have the employee employer model, where the employee is working gig, and the employer doesn't have any idea that the employee, that they're coming to work every day, but in the meantime they're doing other work, and the employer doesn't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and again, you've got the solopreneur, where I may be working with four other people. The person I contract with gets the project. They don't know who's involved. They don't need to know. I'm dealing with that, and they're
And I
very
think
happy.
Yeah, and I think the perceived notion of Indians as a freelancer is still a bit, uh, I would say, uh, not untrustworthy, but it's still very weak. A lot of people do gig work here as well, but I would still say that brands would trust a agency, and then agency can hire freelancers, but they need a face. They need someone they can uh, sue, so to speak. But it's in a sense that they want someone on an organizational level that is streamlining, the gig effort, so to
Right.
speak. They
Well,
would
that's
never
why
go,
Fever
yeah,
and those types of
Upwork and
organizations
that,
are
yeah.
Upwork, right? That's why that's when somebody would hire an Indian,
Mm-hmm.
period. But
Hmm.
they wouldn't necessarily go to LinkedIn and put a post, anybody want to do this job,
Yeah.
and just hire somebody. But
And
they
even
would
if
go to Fever
Yeah,
or
but even
Upwork.
if they do on LinkedIn, it's very strange that I've experienced this. That if like an Indian says I can do a project for like $3,000, it is perceived as I might not be delivering that standard of work as someone that is charging $8,000, $10,000, right? So I'm basically saving them money, but they perceive it as, oh, this is gonna be shoddy. This is not gonna be as what I expect. So I'd rather spend more money and hire someone that is worth more, because I think that invoice comes with a perceived value. Like if
Yeah.
I'm spending $10,000, I'm going to get amazing work. If I'm only spending $3,000, what can I expect? So yeah, that's also a
And
challenge.
that I don't know if that's ever going to go away, because
Mm.
you're told all the time, or at least I'm told all the time, don't ever give anything away for free, because the perceived value is that you'll always be free, and you're not as good as somebody who's offering it for $15,000. Um, I have a master class that I run, and the model has been free, and
Mm.
everyone is telling me, "Oh no, you can't do that anymore. You have to charge people." I'm like, that's I don't like that. I don't like that rule. I don't believe that rule, but I understand that people perceive that way. I mean, people perceive that way. If I were to show somebody two coats, exactly the same coat, and say this coat is $3 and this coat is $500, the perception would be, oh, this is a finer coat than the other coat. And that's exactly the same coat. Um, but also, I had mentioned to you before that India ranks number 5 in the top 10 largest economies in the world. So India's number 5. It's United States, China, Japan, Germany, India, UK, France, Italy, Brazil, and Canada. Those are the top 10 according to Forbes, right?
Mm.
However, the gross, the GDP for India, the GDP per capita is insane. And insane by, it's like $1 to $80, $2 to $80. So America's going to charge $80, and India's going to charge $2. I was like, what? And um that's there's a perception there.
And I think sooner or later, uh, people around the world will realize that even though India charges less, their work isn't in any way subpar compared to the US. And that's when either India would allow itself to increase that, to $10, $12, $15, which is still vastly more than what we are doing right now. Or the US and the other countries would be forced to cut their costs in a way that they charge less, which is less likely, and it only allows the room for India to grow. So you'll see in like 20, 30 years, India will climb that ladder further up,
Oh, I'd
maybe
say in 5
overtaking
years.
Germany,
I'd say
France.
in 5 years. It's got to change.
Yeah.
It's got to change, because I think India will begin to grow to number 4, to it will grow. Because
China would be a challenge, but
China will be
again,
a
because
challenge.
of the sheer workforce it has. But I would say definitely it will climb up to top three very soon.
Yeah, it definitely will. And at that point, I think that the GDP has to grow.
Mhm.
It just has to. I mean, I don't know all of the pieces that create this economies. I'm not an economic specialist, but I mean, it has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change. And I think that the way India is, first of all, being flexible, but also competing at the same, it's doing it in the same breath. It's like saying, sure, I'll do whatever you want to do, but in the meantime, and we want to get this next job. So we'll do whatever you want us to do, and we're going to get that other next job. So the way that's happening, it's going to eventually raise that level.
Yeah.
It's going
Also,
to.
as I said earlier, India is streamlining and commercializing a lot of obscure things that were out of reach of, I would say, a normal college kid. So now it's preparing its future workforce, which would be more agile, more fierce, more flexible, more ready to do things. And at that point, there might come a time where we are able to dictate our own terms, which is not seen as being rigid, but it's just, now we have the reins. Now we will dictate how you work rather than
Exactly.
the other way around.
But, companies will begin to partner with India more
Mhm.
so. So where they used to partner with China, they'll begin to partner more so with India, which will raise that level. It will just continue, it's going to happen slowly at first, and then it's going to explode.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I just, I just see that happening. Um, and as I said before, it's sort of like it may be slow at first, but as that wheel begins to turn, it's going to take on an amount of speed where it's going to be lightning fast. And then suddenly we're there. And it's like, when did this happen? Overnight? No. It just happened slowly, and then suddenly overnight it happens. And it's very similar to 5 years ago. No one would think that half the world is working remote. 5 years ago, no one would think that. 5 years
It,
ago,
it was an
no one would let you
impossibility.
work remote.
Yeah, it was an so, like if someone suggested that, they'll be like, "Are you lazy, or do not want to work, or is it
Right.
Uh, and also, letting go of micromanagement has been difficult on a global scale because earlier the boss would just see who's working, who's being productive, and who's just slacking off. Now you have to trust the person to do the job. You cannot. I know organizations have vastly different measures of controlling productivity or measuring productivity. Like you should have a mouse move every 5 minutes or a click every 3 minutes or a screenshot. But I have seen a very high attrition rates in those organizations because it's not sustainable. You're not going to put people in this sort of a cubicle at their own home, so to speak. And I have seen organizations where it's flexible. It's just about the deadline or about the project, and you are your own, person as to how you structure your workday or how whenever you want to come in, whenever you do want to do work, as long as it gets done by this time. And I've seen those organizations grow vastly, at a vastly high rate than others. So yeah, I think that is a change that I myself never expected because in India, when the lockdown happened, the first lockdown, it was for 21 days. So the government told us you're going to be locked down for 21 days. So we took our systems from the office thinking, oh, we're going to come back in 21 days. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you in 3 weeks. And 2 years later, people had moved to different states, and it was now an impossibility to get people to in the same state. People would rather leave their jobs than come into work or come into the office. So yeah, it was certainly something that no one had anticipated on a
No one
global scale.
anticipated. And so it's changed the way, it made the agencies more accessible,
Hmm.
although the agencies themselves had to change.
Hmm.
So, as you said, there's a lot of attrition going on because they'll hire somebody, but if you can't hold your weight, if you can't manage it, you're out. They're
Yeah.
not going to. You might be able to go into an office and sit in an office and get accepted
Mm,
because the boss is so busy. I would say the entire culture of the office changes dramatically when you go remote.
mm,
And the companies that had managers, literally, they were doing nothing except walking around, making sure you were doing your work. They don't need those people anymore. It wasn't so much that um, the 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 people that were doing the work, the lower salaried people who were doing the work, it wasn't so much those people got laid off. It was the people who were watching those people because they still need the work done. They don't need the manager making sure you do the work.
yeah.
That they don't need. So that level, that has the supervisor, the manager, that level has been removed.
Yeah. Or
Um,
they have
and
been
then
forced to do or other things rather than just.
yes, and then it was replaced with someone else
Yeah.
that has completely different skills.
Mm,
So the skill set for the workforce, the global workforce, is different.
mm,
And anybody that came out of college 10 years ago isn't ready for this new workforce.
yeah. Yeah. You're not expected to do. Earlier it was, oh, you are a social media guy, you're doing social media. Now you're a digital marketer, or you're a detention marketer, or you're an agency marketer, or you're a marketing automation specialist, which is doing everything, which is basically handling email, SMS, push, web, socials, and you're required to do that. You so I had tiptoed around the idea of code for a very long time. In college, I was not particularly good at code, so that kind of stayed with me for a very long time. And even with Marketing Cloud, once I completed my email marketing specialist and administration stuff, the next step was requiring development, like SSJS, AmScript, all that stuff. And I tiptoed around it. I tried CRM, I tried Sales Cloud, but I see now that there's no way around it. I have to kind of go into that zone that I don't like, or step out of my comfort zone in that regard and learn it. Otherwise, I'll be left behind and others will just do that stuff and replace me. So I'm now forced to do it in a way that I have to learn these things. And it also comes with a lot of caveats, because a flexible workforce also means that you have to be more available. When you went to an office, you logged out at 5 p.m. Nothing was your problem until the next day. Even if there were like 100 emails that came in, you didn't care that much. It's like, all right, I'll see it tomorrow. I'll look at it tomorrow. Now, if something goes wrong at 11 p.m. in the night, you have to make yourself available. There's no other way around it. And it kind of l- brings you over. So over a time, you are more burnt out than you would in an office, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I understand that because there um, on the agency level, this is your project, your team's project. So somebody in the team's got to step up.
Mm.
And if you're the lead, then it's you,
Yeah.
or you get to assign it to somebody else. That's the way it goes. And there is nobody else. You know, even on the corporate level, if you were in the corporate level, at that level, there are those people that are doing the same burnout on the corporate level because they need to be available. So, um, at some point they wine and dine people. So on Saturdays and Sundays, they're playing golf, they're having dinners, they're always on with their clients or their, with the structure. So yes, there's that level, but there's also the level of um, a project that goes live, an event that goes live. They need to be available. Um, and those, because a lot of the business is global, these things can be happening at any point in time. So, you could be in the, you could be in marketing and be involved in events. and the event may be in Switzerland. It doesn't matter. You're not going to Switzerland, but you need to be on during the event just in case something goes wrong. So you need to be available. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to log off. It's like, okay, well, it's 8:00. Switzerland's on. Let's go. So it's, it's all business has changed. All
Yeah.
of the business. And burnout is a big deal because, again, the gig burns out because the gig literally, unless you begin to charge, and there are people that do this, the
Mhm.
coach mentality where, okay, you could buy this package, we could do coaching, I'm your coach, it's $10,000. And people buy it, and I'll coach you 5 times, right? And I travel the world now. I travel wherever I want to be. I am what I want to be. And, I'm coaching you from, Mexico. Next month, I'm coaching you from Switzerland. The next month, I could be wherever I want to be. I'm just coaching. So the mentality for them at that level, they travel, they don't care. But then there are those other people that are not charging $10,000 per client that are a bit more realistic. Those are the ones that burn out.
And
Um,
and
I
burnout
don't
sort of
know about this coach mentality. I'm not there yet.
yeah. And burnouts are at different levels. For example, it also depends on your own personality. Everyone knows there are days like, for example, Q4. Everyone knows in terms of digital marketing, this is the craziest quarter of the year. Everyone's working 12, 14 hour work days. And there are months and weeks in, let's say, March or April where you would have like just one call a day. There's nothing else. Now, a normal person would be very happy with this structure because they know they just have to exert themselves for a few months of the year, and for the rest of the year, they're still, especially in a place where it's flexible. There is no limited work hours, like you have to log in and log out and stuff. A person like me that has anxiety, if I have a call in like the afternoon 2 p.m., I can't do anything else till 2 p.m. because I'm constantly thinking about the call, whatever. Even if it's just a stand-up call, I can't I can't sit down and watch Netflix or watch YouTube in peace. 10% of my brain would always be on that call. So the burnout with a person that has, let's say, or it's introverted or has a different sort of anxiety would be much faster rate than a person that is carefree, is working from project to project, or just working when it is required for them to work and not thinking about it. So yeah, that's also a thing.
It's um I on the agency level, I always made myself available, so I was there 9 to 5,
Mm.
and I would have dinner, come back, check to make sure everything was okay, and around 8, 9 o'clock, I'd be like, okay, you know what, I can't be on all night long. If something crashes, they'll call me, But
Mm.
after 9 o'clock, I'm off. Then I find that now I didn't burn out, but I could never move away from my computer.
Mm.
So it may be because of my lifestyle where I guess everything was work. I guess everything was work. So I had no life. But for other people, that's not the case. I mean, they're not able to have no life. I don't know if the term is fortunate, but I was fortunate to only have a husband. And when my husband passed away, I don't have anything else. So this is it. That's not the case with everybody. You can't have the workforce can't be single men and women and widows.
Mm.
And that's not the way it works. So burnout is probably a big deal on many
Mm.
levels.
Also a cultural
In a
aspect of
global
it.
workforce where we are still all jockeying for position. We're not necessarily certain what is it
Mm.
that I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do that. It's like, what did I just agree to? I just agreed to be online for Sunday. Okay, I guess I can't go out Sunday, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. So while it's as flexible as you could think it is, it's also very competitive because you want to make yourself available. You want to become more flexible. You want to be able to do it, and the old 9 to 5 model doesn't exist anymore. And I don't think it exists anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't. I often talk to my dad because he had a government job, so he would leave our home by 11. He'd come by 6. Like he'd had a 7-hour workday and off on Sunday, and he had a very sort of stable. It wasn't very up and down. And he sees me having calls like at night or at 6:30 in the morning. It's like, how are you working at 6:30 in the morning? How is that even possible? And it's like, I'm not gonna have that life that you led for like 40 years, doing the same thing, working 11 to 7, and I'm probably not gonna have the same retirement as yours. He gets like work from his 401k, so he doesn't have to do anything else. He's not worried about money, so to speak. And I think for us or a generation that goes like 30 years from now, who knows what happens? We have AI that basically does 50% of our work anyways now. So I don't think we'll have a traditional retirement, so to speak. It would be vastly different. Either we work until we drop dead on our desks, or we just, are left out from the run and we're just doing some niche thing.
Yeah, as I said, this is like an exponential thing that's not ending. You know what I'm saying? So, and by just saying AI, you introduce, and yet the next wave. So it's not stopping, right? We don't know what AI is going to be doing. Obviously, there are people that say, I hate AI, I'll never use AI, or I love AI. People that are, haven't written since the first day that they were able to ask AI to generate any kind of content. It's, I mean, I don't have a subscription. I just have the free AI, but I have purposefully said, give me some responsive code, and it does.
It does. It does.
It does.
And it's surprisingly good.
I need to know how I could use that responsive code, but it will give me the shell.
Yeah. 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 So now it has become from a person that was a genius in code to me that just knows the basic syntax and I can just do anything with it. I have so initially when I was doing SQL queries, I'm still at a basic or intermediate level, so to speak. And one day I was like, can it do this? Asked myself a question, and I entered a prompt. It gave me a SQL query, which was in no way I could never come up with that, realistically speaking. And it worked. And I just had to like make some changes on a very basic level. And now I'm as good as a guy who's been working for 5 years. So that gap has been bridged like immediately. And there's no working around it as much as you want. I think you'd have to embrace it and you'd have to learn to work it for your favor rather than just being
It's
rigid.
another way of collaborating at this point. So now I'm still learning how to collaborate with you. And now, AI? Now I need to collaborate with AI. So the question that I would ask you so that I would be correct and I wouldn't be insulting and that I would get the answer that I want. Now I've got to find out how to ask the same question to AI. Because you can say, I need a SQL query that will join these two and will, provide, you have to use that language. And it will give you that. It will give you that. You just can't say, "Oh, I need a SQL query." You need to know the language. You need to know how to put. You need to say it.
Correct prompts, I'd say.
Exactly. You need the correct prompts. The same.
And you would see in less than 5 years, India commercializing the prompt aspect of the AI as well, where they are teaching kids how to work AI. Right. And now you would have a workforce that is basically just fluent in AI technology. They're already doing that with masterclasses, but it's still on a very corporate or higher management level. But it's gonna trickle down to a college level thing in less than 5 years. So it's for someone who was doing C++ in college, they have to just adapt to it so quickly. Even for myself, like you know me since the day I started email marketing. I was someone that was struggling with MailChimp, as basic as MailChimp. And now I'm working on 10 different ESPs with 20 different clients. I had to do that. I had to take that leap of faith, go around from my comfort zone, and I still have to do it. Earlier, I think earlier generation just learned one thing and did it for the rest of their lives without having to learn a new thing. And now in this like a global workforce and with these technological changes, you constantly have to reinvent yourself, just update yourself on how things are done, because Salesforce is doing a new update every 6 months. You barely know the last one. You've barely learned Interaction Studio, and now there's an Einstein Studio, and then now there is
Exactly.
predictive AI in Einstein, and now there's generative AI in Einstein. It's
Exactly.
just, oh, I'm still learning Einstein. What do you mean there are three other things in
Not
Einstein?
only
So
that, there are all these other applications that are getting introduced, whereby now you need to gateway them together. So now,
yeah.
it just it doesn't end.
Also, it is very difficult to with and again, this is I'm talking about Salesforce a lot because it's so exhaustive and it's so extensive. If I tell someone that I'm a Salesforce expert or a Salesforce specialist, I have to make sure that I tell them it's Marketing Cloud only. It's email marketing cloud, because people will give me product, they'll give me Salesforce CRM, or they'll give me Engagement Cloud, or they'll give me Commerce Cloud, and like, can you do a project? I was like, I don't even know what this is. I just don't know. I don't even know how those two platforms collaborate. It's between themselves. So
And that's
yeah.
why, this is the beauty of Salesforce, why they certify, and why it's a self-perpetuating cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah, you need to be an engineer in each of these, you need to be certified if you're
Yeah.
going to specialize. Otherwise, I just had somebody come to me to say, we're doing Facebook lead ad leads. We need to get them into Salesforce. How do we do that? And I'm like, well, there's apps for that. Oh, but we don't want to pay for Zapier. All right, so you're going to end up having to pay for something.
Yeah.
Either you're going to pay for an API programmer who can, put it together, or you're going to pay another platform, or you're
Yeah.
going to get a free platform and it's going to work until it doesn't. And then you're
Yeah.
going to wonder why it doesn't work. And there's no support there. And then you need the API programmer once again to help you out. So, it's so special. And I don't mean that to say, oh, you're so special, but it is very specialized, very specialized. And I mean, I had somebody else come to me and say, can you do a project for me? Um, we're in Salesforce, and we're doing work at Google Analytics, and we need to know, for email, we need to know their email addresses. And I'm like, if you don't have those platforms talking with each other, you'll never know. Google Ad doesn't know email addresses. I'm sorry, Google Analytics doesn't know email addresses.
Yep.
So if you're not feeding it, it's not going to come back to the CRM. Just bizarre. And well, do you know how to do that? I'm like, not at all.
That's a
Not at
very
all.
interesting thing that you brought up. Is we are talking about elevating ourselves on the workforce, but on the client's end, they are still stuck in 1990, where they are like, "Oh, I paid you. Give me the work by tomorrow." I was like, "This is not how it works. It has to go through a process." A lot of clients would come and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we paid. When are we getting our deliverables?" And like, this is a kickoff call. We are still learning your stuff, and we are still learning your system. With Salesforce, you have to, because no two instances are similar. Everyone is set up in a very different way. So you first have to explore their environment before you can make changes. And yeah, a lot of the workforce on the client side is still stuck in that, oh, how is this new, or how is this different? Isn't Google Analytics the same thing as other analytics platforms, or like Klaviyo Analytics, for example, or Salesforce Analytics? And it's just, no, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And without documentation, so you run a project, it's done, but there's no documentation,
Mm.
and that's problematic. Oh, well, we let the agency go, and you're a new agency. Okay, well, where's all the documentation for all those projects or processes? What do you mean? You're like, yeah, that
Yeah.
means you're starting from scratch all over again. How
Yeah.
are you to discover how it was done?
I have had calls where I've asked the client, why is this set up this way? It doesn't make sense. And they're like, well, it was set up that way and it was working. So we didn't question the previous agency. And so there would be something that just requires one marketing automation activity, and the previous agency, for some reason, set up 18 activities, which basically does the work of the same one thing, just breaking down on the different things. And you don't know why it is. And you don't know, if I stop this, what else is going to break. So
Right,
now you have to do, R&D and just, go from there. Like, you'll stop one thing and three other things will break, and you realize, okay, you need this on for this two to work. And it's
right.
just, yeah.
And it's crazy. It's
Yep.
And not only that, the technology is moving at such speed that the project worked,
Mhm.
doesn't work anymore, and you don't know why it's not working anymore because the technology changed one little thing.
Yeah.
One little thing, and it's not documented, and it's no longer working, and nobody can figure it out.
Like, Salesforce does these things where they'll rename stuff, or they'll just make something not work anymore. Like, for example, there were automations that stopped working and they had to be transferred to Journey Builder. Now, there were clients that were running upwards of 200 automation. Now, God have mercy on the poor soul that has to transfer them to Journey Builder without making sure
Exactly.
nothing interacts with each other or breaks. And I was learning Analytics Studio, and it changed to Interaction Studio or something. And I was forever exploring, where did it go? I was working on it like last week, and yeah. So that documentation is a thing where Salesforce struggles with it as well. Like, they
Yes.
won't have the proper documentation for that new thing, especially.
Yeah.
To the point, it's no longer useful
It's
because
like each one.
there's
I
like one thing for one tag, which is
Yeah.
basically having no tags at all.
Exactly. Exactly. It's and tags became very popular because it was a way to segment.
Mm.
You know, and in the way I used to do things would be I would create a field that I would use as a tag field. So it would
Mm.
be in the data, and
Mm.
I would have a few different values that I would use to identify an audience, and
Mm.
I created that way. Then the ESPs began, oh, let's tag. So now they allow you to do that. You don't have to worry about it being in the data. They'll supply the tag. But for people that didn't get the tag to start off with, literally they thought flat
Mm.
and basically, let's just send this to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. Or let's send it to people who have opened. All right, we'll do that. My mind always thinks of different types of people, so I was always using my data to tag, and now the data tags, but there are still people that think very flat. So these tags, like you said, there are so many tags.
Also, tags are something very difficult to transfer from one person to the other.
I was
I
just gonna say that. I do the tagging. Now I'm gone. You look at them and go, what are these tags?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yep.
do it that way. I would do it this way. If there was documentation that said the tags are there because we are segmenting on this type of behavior, you'd say, "Oh, okay, now I understand what those tags mean." But otherwise, you would look at them and say they're dates. I don't know what these tags are.
Also, tags have to be very consistent. Like, I have seen a lot of managers start tagging when the project is fresh. When they were doing like two automations, three emails, they'll be like, "This is post-purchase. This is pre-purchase. This is yes. This is that." And then they're doing 10 automations and nothing is tagged anymore because they can't keep up with it. So yeah, tagging has to be consistent. That has to be standardized. It's very difficult to kind of keep up on that level. So I have seen, like, I would say upwards of 90% people just not do it at all. So they'll just rely on the ESP based data and they'll not tag stuff because, again, it's not transferable information or knowledge or even skills at this point.
Yeah, it's it goes back to the strategy concept, and that's something else that is difficult across teams.
Mhm.
So if you've got a corporate strategy, and that corporate strategy, um, the you've got a corporate goal, and you've got corporate strategy and goals. So
Mhm.
whatever the goals are, the corporate has come up with a few different strategies. If that isn't um, made transparent to the agency is going to come up with their own strategy, right? And it's not that it's not, they may be competitive, or it may be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And and in many cases, larger companies, um, these days I often wonder, does anybody have any strategy? Because, I'll go into a project and I'll be like, well, what is your strategy? And they're like, I don't know. What do you mean?
Yeah. I've had this conversation so many times with the client. They'll be like, "Oh, we want a browse automation or a welcome series," and I'm like, "What do you want to do with this welcome series?" And they're like, "I don't know. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
Like, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve? Do you want
We
more
want to make money.
sales? Do
We
you
want,
want to nurture? Do you want to app download? What's your end goal?" They're like, "I don't know. I want more
can
conversions."
we
It's
do it
like,
all? Can't we do it all?
yeah, I want more
No.
conversions. It's like, no, it's not tailored that way. It's a completely different thing. It depends on your goals. It's not a cookie cutter approach, so to speak.
And you can't have one thing that does it all, because then it
Mhm.
doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
Like the welcome campaign that nurtures and drives sales, and you can't. I mean,
yeah,
it will end up doing everything badly.
yeah. It won't nurture and it won't make you any money. So
Exactly.
yeah, but on the very rare instances where client really understands that conversation, it's amazing where the project goes. Like you have that kickoff and you're like, what's your goals? And they are very open to it and they are very uh, detailed about it. So you basically know the picture and it really helps you. And it's just a very collaborative effort on the both part. But yeah, it's rare.
Well, that's when you both speak in the same language, because you both know the goal.
Yeah.
So it's pretty simple. You're all on the same team. You know exactly where the goal is. So, everybody's going towards that. It's difficult and in many cases, the agency is not always provided with that transparency. So, for example, the agency, they're working, and it's like, do we know the sales? No, we don't know sales. Do we have access to Google Analytics? Do we know the traffic? No, we don't. So what? We don't know anything. We're assuming that we're doing the right stuff.
Yeah.
And we're assuming, okay, here's the goal. Okay, our goal is this, but we don't see that. We don't see the conversion.
Also, this happens with a lot of clients where they'll come in and say, "Oh, do whatever converts the most, or do whatever is the best practice." It's like it doesn't work that way. Your industry is completely different. Your user base is completely different. Something that worked for your competitor might not work for you at all. Like, what's your most converting? What's your best converting pop-up form? No, it doesn't work it like that. It's just something that is an exit intent for another client might not work at all for you. We don't necessarily have all the answers. We A/B test all the time.
Right.
We still learn from each and every client every time. And even the clients that are with us for a long time, we still A/B test because
Right.
everything changes. It's very dynamic. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Oh,
difficult to explain that.
it was working, but it's not working now. I had a client come to me and they said, we're seeing that our webinar attendance is dropping off.
Mhm.
And I said, since when? And they said, since, I don't know, last year. And I said, it may be attrition, and I'm not exactly certain, maybe that the companies that you were inviting, that
Mhm.
those people don't exist anymore. So
Yeah,
used to have 100, now you have 50. It's that they never refilled those spots. So they're not there to go to, I'm not sure. I said, so let's see what, I said, I don't know what's going on. I don't have the answer. Like you said, I don't have the answer. You're coming to me with a problem, which is good. Let's see what we could do. So I
exactly.
provided them with a few. Let's invite a few more people. I don't know if we're inviting competitors. You need to be aware of that, because if these people were providing email addresses and their personal email addresses and not corporate email addresses, you may be actually inviting competitors,
Mm.
because now they've moved on. They're no longer with that other company. They're now maybe representing someone else. So you have to be aware of this. It's just, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, and all of the solutions were like opening windows for them that they never thought of. And I said, but let's move along with one solution at a time and see where we go. Just be aware that a solution, more people, may not be the right solution. It's there are so many variables as the workforce becomes global, as people move around remotely, as people take on gigs, as people are entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. I mean, all these different styles of work, it becomes a hotbed of flexibility and talent, where it used to be 9 to 5, I just basically got the job done and I'm getting a paycheck and I don't care, type of a thing. Where, like you said, not that your father didn't care. My father cared. Your father cared. But it was 9 to 5, had a job. My father was 65. He retired,
Yeah.
and he got money and he relaxed.
And they didn't have to constantly relearn or learn new things as well. They learned something, they specialized in something, and that's what they did until the end of life. It's not going to be the case with me or you. We still, even I think, even at your place, with such a longer experience, I'm sure you're still learning new things
I
all the
can't.
time.
I am 68 years old.
Mm.
I'm not retiring. I may slow down,
Mm.
but I don't think I'll ever give up
Yeah.
and just do nothing, because, as I said, that's not my personality.
Mm.
So while, I gave up my time to do the agency work and always be on, I'm that type of person that will always come up with another project. Maybe it's a volunteer project, but I'll always be in the industry. I won't walk off. And when I do walk off, it will be to heavens.
Yeah, as I said, we're just
It'll
going
be
to
walking
do
off there.
type and then just that's it.
Exactly.
It's-
I'll be meeting my maker in some way, shape, and form. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I want to do it. And I don't think I know how to do it. All of those things. And I don't know if I ever had this conversation with my father, may he rest in peace, or my mother, may she rest in peace. She would look at me and go, they would both look at me and go, what a horrible world you're living in. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I feel I can always learn from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Always learn from somebody.
Yeah. In my case, it's a bit different. I want to do it. I still don't know how to do it, but I have always had this dream where I would retire early, like 35, 40. I'd have enough money. And again, this is like a bucket list sort of stuff
Yes.
where I'd have enough money and just, enjoy the rest of the 20 years. But as I just go towards that age bracket, I realize it's not gonna, it's
It's
very difficult to have that reality.
yeah, it's not that it's impossible. I just say that that person who does that um is the innovator. But let's use the example of Elon Musk. He can retire.
Yeah.
He won't.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll ever retire. Whether people like him or not, that's not the point.
Mm.
Whether they think that he's hot and he's going to go cold when he goes cold. He's
Mm.
not going to say, "Oh well, I'm not doing anything anymore." I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I really can't. And that's the point. I mean, he's unusual, right? He's unusual.
Mm.
But there are people that of that caliber that don't ever stop. I mean, Bill
Warren
Gates,
Buffett.
Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, all of these people, they can retire. They won't. And they're, they're not the workforce because they're not doing
Mhm.
anything. They ask them, do you know how to use AI? No, they don't even. I have somebody who does that. They don't do those types of things, but their brains constantly work. So
Mhm.
there's always going to be that I'll use the term elite person, right? Always. Then there's going to be the person that cheats and makes money that way. I don't ever want to be that person. And then there's going to be the person that works a lot. And then there's going to be the person who really works a lot. um, so, I don't know how, if that's ever going to change. I don't know. That I can't tell you. I can't tell you, science fiction wise, the workforce, it, on the macro level, is going to change. But I don't know what that's going to look like at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
At all.
It's
I can't
it's
imagine.
it's the vast uncertainty of it that scares me as well. Because
Right.
when I was in college, I had some idea what I'd be doing. I was very clear that I wanted a desk job. I was not going to go out in field, so to speak. I can't do sales. I am terrible at sales, and I can't take the anxiety of, doing targets, finishing targets and stuff. So I had that idea, and I knew there is something out there for me. But now at this stage of my life, I'm not really sure what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Whether I'd be still working or I'd just be thrown out by the just a tide of a new thing that I can't just keep up with it, and just I'm thrown to the side where the world goes on. So yeah, it's pretty daunting.
The only way, at this point, the only way, I, the only way to have that incredible leisure time
Mhm.
is either have the government pay it for you. So, no, we're now going to pay you not to work.
Mhm.
Um, or, we're going to pay, there's some whatever program that we pay you to work half the year, whatever. Everything is free. You're just able to do whatever you want to do. That, I don't know. I don't know about that society. The other half of it is that, you work, you work, you work, you work. And you're constantly reinventing yourself at some level. I mean, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
That you work and you're constantly reinventing yourself to keep up with the technology. And that I don't see changing for at least 20 years. And then at some point it may totally, I mean, I change completely. Like the 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 concept, the feudal concept, or the Roman concept of leisure,
Mm.
where the Roman, the Roman senator didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. It's like, what do you ask the Roman senator, what do you do? Oh, well, I sit in the Senate all day long and I talk to people. I mean, the concept of the Roman senator was a networker. That's all that they did. They met people, they made deals. That's what they did. They didn't, I mean, they may have owned an olive grove, but they didn't do any of that. Matter of fact, their wives were more involved in the business than they were. So that level of, that old concept of leisure, if that is reintroduced, then it sets the world onto back to feudal times, where you've got literally slaves working you at no cost, because that was that model of leisure where the higher echelon didn't work. There was a group of people that did all the work, and then there was in between people that managed them. And then the commercialization came where, oh, you're going to pay me for that? I'm not a slave. I get money. Now I can do whatever I want to do. Okay. And that's where we've been for a really long time.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, the capitalist model of I have a skill or a service. I provide it to you and you pay me for it. That's the model we're at right now. I don't see that going away for a while, although some, governments, they, they would retire that concept. Right now, I see it as it's the drive of the global workforce. So, um, the what used to be called the third world. I mean, like, I don't know where I saw this, and I'm not sure. I think it was Argentina, where it was Argentina was way up in something. I don't remember what it was. I'm not sure if I can find it really quickly, but I saw Argentina very high, and I thought, where did that come from? All these concept of third worlds, forget it. That third world mentality, technology kicked it right in the boot. It basically said, if you can get a country, doesn't matter where it is, if you can get a country, if you can get technology of the country, it happens in light speed. Immediate. It's like Tuesday, they're all walking around. I don't know what we're doing for a living. And Wednesday, they're all going to work because, it's sort of like you give somebody a cell phone and you provide cellular connectivity. And from Monday to Tuesday, they're two different people. And that's the concept of the third world. Each of these, South America, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, all of these third world countries, they're coming up like, overnight. They're waking up overnight saying, yeah, we could do it. We could do it. We want to do it. We can work for you. Let's work. And so it's quite an interesting, I find it honestly as frightening as refreshing. I'm serious when I say that. If it scares that daylights out of me, because no, I don't know who I'm dealing with. No, I don't. And I can't wait to talk to that person because I don't know who I'm dealing with. If I'm standing on the street corner and somebody walks by, do I know the difference between a Korean and a Thai and somebody from Thailand? Can I judge? Oh, they're from Singapore.
Yeah. It was surprising because you still have to learn to respect their culture. And as I said, something that is okay for me might be very offensive to you, and vice versa. Or just how someone conducts a meeting, for example, in US, you would have if it's a casual call, at least a 5-10 minutes banter about how was your day, how's the weekend, how's the politics or whatever. But you wouldn't have that with a client in Australia or UK. They are to the point in less than a minute. How are you? I'm fine. Let's discuss about stuff. You don't need to know who I am. I don't need to know who you are. We're just here to work, and that's what we're gonna do. With and it's difficult in that case because I believe personally in creating rapport over time, where not necessarily I'm coming to your picnics, but at least I know who you are, where you live, what you like, on a general sense, what you dislike, and I can, uh, you know, so to speak, feed off of that relationship and use it to our collaborative measures. I don't know if feed off is the right word, but you know what I mean. I
No,
can kind of
well, the
use that.
team, when you work as a team, that's what the team needs,
Except,
right? But when you're working on this project or that project, and the team keeps changing, then it's
mm,
very abrupt, and it's like, okay, let's get down to work. What's the deadline? I'll be there. Thank you very much. Hang up.
yeah,
Type of a thing. But once you start working with those people over and over again, that's natural, and that's when the cyber office
yeah,
becomes that desk space that used to be together. It's when those teams work together all the time.
yeah,
And that's going to happen where, for example, where you wouldn't even expect it. But if you're working in a niche,
Mm.
For example, you're doing Salesforce all the time. So eventually you're going to be presented with that same person again, maybe 2, 3, 4 times. So the fifth time, it's going to be like you're in this virtual meeting with 5 people, and there's that guy that you've worked with 5 times. Yo, you've got a relationship with that. And they're happy to see you because they are realizing, I don't know these people, but I know you. So, these things are going to happen. It's just different. It's nothing that our folks would ever, I mean, I'm barely able to recognize it. It's nothing that other people can recognize. And you can't fight it.
Yes. Yeah.
But it causes stress, but you can't fight it. You need to be able to literally bend like a reed, in the wind. You need to, because it's going to make, it's going to make the relationships easier. It's going to make the work easier, and it's going to make your, obviously your day easier. It's just so different. You don't know what to expect from day to day.
Yep.
Isn't that bizarre? Doesn't necessarily make you feel any less stressed. However, um, do you we've talked for quite a while. Do you speak, or do you network with people at LinkedIn? Where can people find you if they want to meet you and talk with you? Is LinkedIn the best place?
Yeah, I would say so. LinkedIn is the best place. I'm open to conversations. I'm also thinking about, because I procrastinate a lot when it comes to self growth stuff. I'll be like, I'll do it at 5 a.m. and then it's just not going to happen as something comes up. But I think the way to get around it is just placing yourself in the front of the world. So this is, I've been tiptoeing around, as I said, the developer stuff. And the only way that I can tackle it head on is if I do a sort of a virtual open diary where just or a journal where I just like, oh, day one, I learned X, Y, and Z. And I'm making this post not for people to know my progress, but for me to be aware that I have that perceived expectations from people that I can't fail them. It's very, very strange. I think it would be very strange to you, but
Well, no, it's an interesting way of posting on LinkedIn.
yeah. So I'll say, like, for example, day one I learned AmpScript, just to say, and now I have to learn something new that week to post something new on LinkedIn, because I have a perceived expectation of people that they'll be looking forward to my progress. So I am learning not because I want to learn. I want to learn but that reason is not enough. I'm learning because I perceive that people expect me to learn. It's
So,
it's it's a sort of
but it's
a
also acknowledging the fact that you're learning, because I can guarantee you that
hmm,
even if you don't make it a date to post something that I've learned something, you've learned something,
yeah.
but you're not acknowledging it. So I think it's a nice it's an interesting way of noting that you've learned something, acknowledging to yourself and to others that you've learned something. And now that we've said it, a few other people are going to do it, but it's a refreshing way to post at LinkedIn, because I'm finding the same old posts to be, it's like,
Yeah. It's
the
either anti-establishment, either looking for work, or it's just uh, over
algorithm,
obsession. Yeah,
algorithm.
algorithm. But over obsession about celebrity-esque people in workforce, like, oh, how this guy works 18 hours days. And someone, I think, commented recently in India that I want youngsters to work 70 hours, and everyone's trolling that guy. I think he's a founder of some big, I forgot. I just read the quote. But here's like, everyone is like, how do you, as a multi-millionaire, expect people to work 70 hours when you're giving them peanuts? You know what I mean? So there is one people who
Right.
always adore the establishment, and the other one is just crazy about that. It's just, yeah. I think I I thought about it for a couple of weeks now, and now that I have learned some new things, because I wanted to post something in it, but I had to learn something for that post to work. But I think this way I'll be accountable for the sake of others. And I think that's a way to beat procrastination to me. I don't know how it goes, but it's just.
No, that's interesting. I think LinkedIn has incredible potential,
Mm.
but it also allows people to be incredibly lazy.
Yeah.
Right. So I think everybody can do something that's uniquely them. They
Mhm.
just need to find out what that is. And that means cutting out the noise and listening to themselves and saying, you just said what you wanted to do. I don't think it's that difficult.
Mhm.
I think that you can easily do it. You just need to recognize, okay, this week I learned this. Doesn't need to be, this long post. It's just, I learned to do this. And, it was in this project or whatever, however you want to phrase it. It could be pretty short.
Mhm.
So I celebrate that. I think you could do it. I'll nag you a little bit. I'll hover.
Yeah.
I'll send you a message saying, so what did you do this week?
Yeah.
So what did you learn?
And rather than I'm just speaking out loud, but rather than just journaling it, I can make it a journey to achieving a certification, so to speak.
Yes.
Make it fun. Not just a boring old post about hey, I learned X, like I'm talking to a personal diary, but just something a journey. It's like you have the trailhead where you have milestones and badges, and then you achieve a certification. It's done on a very commercial level, but this is just for
Right.
myself.
This can be done on a personal level. It sounds like fun. I'm so glad that we had this time together. That's a quote from a TV show,
Mhm.
United States TV show. Carol Burnett. And I do that a lot. I don't know why I say that, but she does that too. Um, I appreciate you. You actually have taught me a lot. Um, and I'm grateful for that. Matter of fact, there was a number of years where you were on echo, even though we weren't even with each other.
Mm.
Where I kept going back to that time and thinking, well, what about that? And each time my perception changed. Um, and that's yet another journey. So life is like that. Something that somebody says to you 5 years ago or an occasion that happened 10 years ago doesn't need to be the same feeling over time. It changes.
Yeah.
Where I remember dad told me this and I hated him when he told me that. And then, 5 years later, I'm listening again to what he said. And 10 years later, I'm doing what he told me to do. Um,
Yeah.
Life is like that. So everybody is involved with everybody on a journey along the way to life. Everybody, even the stranger on the corner.
And I would also like to say that we've worked for a very long time, and this call has come after like at least 2 years, if not more. And you were the person that, along with Scott, has mentored me into this field. So I owe it to you both a lot of the things, because it wasn't just hey, you do it this way, because that would have been very surface level. You taught us why we do certain things, or what's the reasoning behind it, which not a lot of seniors or men, someone you work with does, because they just care about the end result, not if someone else is learning. And you and Scott has imbibed, I don't know the correct word, but you have done it with me in a way that now I am this person after these years. And I always talk to my family, even my coworkers, that had it not be with these two patient people, I would have dropped out from email marketing way earlier, when I was doing like so many mistakes. I remember my first year was just riddled with, oh, I sent out an email, there was no link. Yeah.
Oops.
And it's just, uh, yeah, I
That's
think.
mentors. I mean, that's mentors. That's mentors. And I may not have realized I was a mentor to you. It's very important for people to be mentors.
Mhm.
You use the word clone, I use the word mentor.
Yeah.
So I will pass down anything anybody wants to learn.
Yeah.
And I can recognize when somebody wants to learn,
Yeah.
as opposed to when somebody just wants you to do it. Like, okay, I'll show you how to do it. And they're like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah. And you're like, I'll just do it. It's different,
Mhm.
and I'm glad you're successful. I'm very glad that you're successful. And, there's a lot ahead of you. I can't tell you what it is. It's the same journey I took. Nobody would have been able to tell me what it was going to be. Don't let it, don't let it just frighten you. Let it amaze you. If you can take fright and bring it to the next level of amazement,
Yeah.
then um, it's you're able, like some people with food. It's like if you're used to eating specific food and you never want to try anything else, you're never
You're
going to learn.
missing out on so many
You're
things. Yeah.
missing out on things. At least try it and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, wow, that's great. Do you like it?" Not really. Would you order it again? No. But you know what?
Sushi.
I get it. I get the flavor. I get it. I I will eat almost any food, and
Yeah.
that's the type of person I am. I'll
Mhm.
try it once, and then I'll get on a kick, and I'll just keep on. I just,
I tried sushi. I really tried to like sushi. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I tried it thrice. I was like, the first time I was like, it may be the restaurant's fault. And I went to the more authentic hibachi one.
right.
I think it was called hibachi. I don't know, but it was just I don't like the way it is. It's
It's
that.
just, well, it's raw.
Yeah, but
It's raw.
some people like are crazy about it. They're like, oh,
Well,
sushi, yeah, and
it's
I'm
like
like,
caviar. I'm like, caviar?
yeah.
No, no. I've tried caviar. No, it's no, no.
A lot of
No.
people told me it's an acquired taste. I'm like, I'm not acquiring it.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, there are certain things that I can acquire, and there are certain things that you cannot. Right. But the point is, allow it to be amazement. Like, wow, this is amazing. Do you like it?
Yeah,
Not really, but it's amazing. Caviar. It's amazing. Will you eat it again? Never. But it was an amazing experience. If you could take it to that level, if somebody else wants to eat caviar, by all means, you know,
Mhm.
some people, some people like champagne. Oh, it's no, no, thank you. Some people like alcohol. No, no, thank you. So I just I try to use that. I mean, I have to force myself sometimes to
Mhm.
be amazed because I'm frightened. And I know I am. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's past the point of challenge. I don't know what I'm doing. It literally, I'm jumping from the airplane. And do you want to jump from? No, I don't want to jump from the. I'll do it once.
Yeah,
So, um, if if it can be amazing, allow it to be amazing. At some point in time in your life, you'll recognize similar things and you'll know, I'm not jumping from the airplane again. Thank you very much. I don't need to. I'm good at this. I'm really good at that. And I'm good at the other thing. And I'm not good at jumping from an airplane.
yeah.
So, on jumping from an airplane, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate your time. And let's stay in touch.
Yes, I really, yeah. Thank you for having me. I miss our talks a lot, so this was very, very good. Thank you so much.
And goodbye to all our friends in virtual email land.